Do not go over a single man's home by yourself, especially if you meet him online. All right, I want you to take your time and think about that. That's not a good idea at all. You're too young to know why you're doing it, but more importantly, you should not be doing it. Bring a friend, tell a parent. Oh, shocking. Tell your parents. Yes, because some of you guys won't be found. Okay, I love those movies, Taken, and I forget the other ones, some of the other ones that they are taking kids and selling them, sex trafficking. Those movies when the dads are searching the earth. But that's not a reality, that's a movie. Good afternoon and welcome to The Counselor. I am your host, Sheldon Stovall. So today we're going to be talking about fear unleashed, right? So we want to talk about some common fears among teens, which would be including current events like crime victims, right? So they're seeing a lot of people running on the news. Those who do watch the news, they're seeing people running and afraid. They're seeing children hungry and desolate, right? So there's something that is definitely being unleashed, right? And that does go into their mind, especially our younger teens who are hearing bits and pieces, and are trying to kind of piece it together in their understanding of what's going on, right? Again, we're talking about fear, right? Being alone, right? So sometimes, especially our younger daughters, I mean, our sons as well, but I've seen it more in daughters, right? That they sometimes are afraid when they're home by themselves, right? And some of these movies don't help. And then you have nuclear war, which is currently what's being put across television screens, all around in papers, online. There are memes about it, right? So general fear of the future. So they start becoming afraid, right? So fear begins to unleash in our kids. So teens face having to deal with growing up like the real world, right? So they have to now start figuring out like how are they going to fit into the world, right? And I often say this, guys, right, that you get one chance to go through school and to learn and pay attention, because once you start becoming an adult, you're now going to be dealing with the real world, right? So general fears of the future. So when you're dealing with the real world, you might be moving out, right, of your parents' house or going to college, whatever your choice might be. You might have to start paying bills, right? So that type of fear of the future. And then, of course, obtaining your license or even some of you your permit. Right. So fear of the future, you start worrying. Other things we worry about is getting into a good college, getting accepted. So there's many different worries that start happening as we go from teens to young adults. So we just want to talk about some top fears that teens are having as of data up to today. Okay, so terrorist attack was the number one answer. So a lot of them do not remember 9/11, right? That we've been hearing in the news as well. And they were not there for it, but they've heard about it. So especially the teens in America, right? So some of them that are at this age now, they've heard about it. They might have read about it in school, right? Or now they're starting to see snippets of it on the news, right? So terrorist attacks. And then let's talk about teens around the world. There are some teens that are prepared for terrorist attacks, right? They happen more often than none in their country, right? So that can be an increased amount of fear for some teens in some countries that may not be as protected as the United States, right? Spiders, right? The old 8-leg crawly thing, right? So teens often are afraid of spiders. You even see those TikTok videos with the kids with the fake spider, and they put it on their grandma's lap and it moves and grandma starts screaming. And, so general fear, spiders, death or being killed, all right, is another one. Some children, they do fear, and teens, they do get afraid of, something going to happen to them or dying. Some kids won't get on certain rides because they think they may fall off, or won't go into heights because they feel like something might happen, right? So afraid of sudden death. Some teens, which I think sometimes isn't a bad thing of succession or succeeding in life, all right, or failing, the opposite, right? So some teens, myself included, when I was that age, I had a fear of failure. So I needed to get straight A's to feel like I was accomplishing something and that I was keeping up with my classmates, right? So sometimes fear of failure can kind of drive you to do better, right? Or succeeding in life. So some people worry, like, if I don't get in this particular college, I may not make it, right? So you want to worry about that. You want to think about the benefits, right, of succeeding. Crime, right? Gang violence, right? Criminals. So being in neighborhoods, right, that aren't as safe as others, right? More inner city neighborhoods than suburban, right? So that makes some people afraid, to go out in their homes because there's gangs on the corners or gang members in the neighborhood, or there's a lot of violence, right? So some teens have to worry about that. And this is worldwide, so we're doing Fear Unleashed today. So it's worldwide. These are things that we need to start thinking about, right? The fear of nuclear war was the top answer today, because right now we're dealing with something like that in this country, right? Not in this country, but in other countries, and we're kind of talking about it now. So how do you help a teen with fear, right? So how are we going to help our kids? And parents, I do want to encourage you guys to sit down and have a conversation with your kids about going forward, right? About the future, right? What's happening right now? What is going on with the gas prices, right? Sometimes we want to keep our kids oblivious to what's going on, right? And so they're not sure what's happening. So you want to make sure you help them by teaching them healthy self-talk, like talk with them. Let them know that, yes, things are happening right now, whether it's in the news or around the world. But how do you get through this? Talk yourself through this, right? So praise your team's effort rather than achievements, right? So sometimes if they don't make it, they didn't win the beauty pageant, right? So instead of, something that, they didn't win and they're all sad, how about the fact that you've made it even in the contest, right? So you want to praise them for their efforts as well, right? Role models, right? Figure out what their role models are. You can learn about a kid or a person if they do decide to share with you about their role models, right? That does help them start learning how to deal with failure and success. So get involved with your teen's school, right? Parents, like, I know sometimes the kids, oh my gosh, you're embarrassing me. Find ways. I mean, we have so much technology now. We don't even have to show up for parent-teacher conference anymore, right? We can do all this on telehealth and online. So yes, you do have a few minutes, parents, to start getting more involved in your kids' school life. And more importantly, when to start seeking professional help. Right. So this is the counselor, right? So we want to always recommend, like, if you're not experienced in this, or you're kind of new at dealing with fear, especially on this level to this day, right, in age, all right, always seek special help. And again, you can always contact your doctor and get a referral, or you can always give us a call here at the counselor. Our number is always scrolling at the bottom of the screen. You can email us, and one of our staff will kindly and happily direct you to some professional help. So parents, we sometimes see common fears that teenagers experience, right? We've been there. We were teens at one time, right? So we had fears. So we have to always remember, too, that our children may have fears as well, right? So teenagers, what do you think they fear? Being sick, right? For example, the coronavirus. How many teens were nervous, right? But then when they started hearing the rumors on the news, right? Oh, well, it's only affecting adults, right? So you would hear the kids when they're talking about it. Well, I'm not getting sick. Oh, I haven't gotten sick, right? So the fear didn't go in because they heard, right, that it wasn't affecting children, right? So fears of sickness sometimes make children afraid. And that's why we're happy and we're glad that those of us who do vaccinate our children early and, in their first few weeks of being alive, right? That's what we do is we eliminate that fear of sickness, right? Fear of their parents divorcing. Now that's a big one. Right? Parents, we always talk about this on the counselor as well. Stop arguing in front of your kids, right? Calm down. Go in the car, take a nice Sunday drive, and have a discussion, right? Take the kids with you or leave them back. I don't know whichever is safer, right? But stop arguing in front of the kids. They get nervous, right? They're hearing you screaming at the top of your lungs. They're wondering what's going on. Mom is crying. Dad is begging. It's a mess, right? So parents, you want to make sure that you're always trying to keep the peace in front of the kids. All right. I don't remember any time I ever heard my parents argue, right? So some people don't argue in front of their kids, right? Because that eliminates fear. So parents, we need to start learning from our parents' mistakes, right? What happened in the past, we don't want to keep repeating, right? Over and over again. Again, fear of not doing well in school, right? So when you hear your child coming home saying, Mom, I'm just not understanding what a derivative is, right? How to do this algebra. All right, even if you didn't understand it, what should you do, right? Find out, call the school, find out there's tutoring available. If the child is not doing well in sports, maybe a coach might be something they need. If they want to do dance or cheerleading and they're not catching on like the other kids, it's probably because the kids have been doing, other kids, some of them have been doing cheerleaders since they were 3, right? So you want to start thinking about that when your kids want to start doing sports and exercises. Start thinking early, right? So that your kids, when they do decide to do something, they're not so far behind and have a fear of not doing well, right? So we're working on fears as parents to help prevent this fear unleashed in our kids, right? Fears of disasters, right? Like tornadoes, right? Or fires, right? So I know in the East Coast, there's no fear of the fires. That's more of a West Coast thing, but tornadoes are big, right? Going through the country, right? So that's something that's frightening. Now, some kids who live in areas, Florida and different areas, right? So yeah, they're used to hurricanes and tornadoes every day, right? So, that fear isn't introduced to them as much it would be for a kid that's in California and a tornado came through. They'll be nervous, right? So fear of experience in peer pressure or peer rejection, right? So fear is very gripping for some people. And I want to explain this because some people actually have physical reactions when they become afraid, right? They get nervous and they freeze, right? They get frozen in fear. All right. And sometimes the kids don't know how to say that to you, but when they can't move their feet, they really cannot move their feet. They are sorely afraid. So parents, you want to stop protecting the kids so much not to be exposed to things like in front of crowds. There's different things. I mean, I know back in the day, I'm telling my age again, they had CCD and First Communion and speeches in church and things like that, and Sunday schools. And if they didn't go to school, maybe in school, in regular school, they would probably have some type of speech or play that your kid would have to be a part of, right? Don't be afraid to challenge your kids to get in front of someone, because I'll tell you, once you get to college, you're going to have to take public speaking at some point. So don't change your mind for going to college, but you are going to have to learn to speak in front of people and perform in front of people, right? So the best way to do that is to start trying to do it early. And parents, ease them in. You'll kind of learn as it goes. All right. So why are teens afraid, right? So, we thought about that. It may be triggered by something or related to school, right? Something happened in school that made them start sensing a heightened level of fear. Or divorce, again, when they're hearing their friends saying, oh, my mom and dad don't sleep in the same house anymore, right? So they start worrying, oh, my God, is that going to happen to my parents, right? Illness or death in the family. So this COVID thing, this coronavirus has been a tough one on many of us, right? So it has induced some fear in our kids. So we want you parents, to start looking at some of these signs. And in a few minutes, we're going to talk about some symptoms that you can look for in your children and even siblings or friends. Maybe you might have noticed some of these signs in your friends, right? Some youngsters, become fearful about gang activities or the lack of safety in school, right? So sometimes, some kids that are not from rough neighborhoods might see kids fighting with each other and bleeding and all over and jumping each other, right? So sometimes they might start fearing their safety. So you want to talk to your kids. If they're not wanting to go to school, there could be an issue, right? They're afraid of something. So you want to talk with your kids, right? There were a teenager performs less well in school or in sports or in social and interactions, there are some symptoms or signs that may happen, right? Symptoms of anxiety, right? Or recurring fears or worries about routine parts of everyday life, right? So when they're getting worried about missing the bus now or getting their assignments in on time or they're feeling overwhelmed, right? So they're starting to become very anxious. Again, you start seeing changes in your child. These are some symptoms that it might start coming out either physically, right? Or mentally, right? Irritability. So when they start getting very irritated, right, they start yelling at you, right, for no reason, right? So when they start getting irritable, there could be some issues, and not that the ones, like we always say, that yell at you every day. You move their phone. Why did you yell my phone? Or, you change something in the house. Why did you do that for? Not those ones. Those are just spoiled brats, right? We're talking about the ones who are normally quiet, right? Who all of a sudden you start seeing some drastic changes, right? They're having trouble concentrating. Or they're extremely self-conscious, right, about themselves, what they're looking like. They're sensitive to criticism, right? They're feeling so much pressure that they're just, if you say one thing to them, they're going to get very upset or want to get on the defense, right? So you want to look at some of these symptoms. All right. Withdrawn from social activities. So when you want to invite them that they would normally go on grandma's on Sunday, they're not going, right? Or if they normally would hang out with the cousins or go out to the park, they don't want to go anymore. So when you're seeing them withdrawn, right? Avoiding of difficult situations, right? Or they lose in situations, right? So when they start getting very upset for no reason because they lost something, right? So we all get upset about our cell phone being lost, but when you're really upset to the point where you're slamming doors and punching walls, right? All right, it's not that bad. You can get another one, right? And then the physical parts, right? Chronic complaints about stomach aches or anything going around, right? So if they're having some physical symptoms, right, you want to make sure you start asking the right questions, but more importantly, get the professional help that you might need in case you're not qualified. All right, so we want to continue this conversation. We would like to encourage you guys, if something that we talked about today might be happening in your life, you can give me a call. The number is always scrolling at the bottom of the screen. You can call me, all right? You can email me at promo@thecounselor.live, or you can slide up in my DMs. Some of these young users are developing low self-esteem issues, body issues, body shaming. Everyone thinks they have to have this waist that's a size 0. Some people cut their ribs out. They get surgery to remove fat. They put fat in different places. Everybody doesn't spend their money on the mall on Louis Vuitton purses. Some people actually take their money and invest into their body to look physically more attractive. With that said, there was a story with a guy, I'm going to pull it up in a minute, who had gotten his chest implants. So they weren't like breasts, but they were like kind of pecs and muscles. But because he was working out and the way he was working out, it started shifting them. So then they fell down under a pocket in his chest or something. I can't remember the entire article, but the point was the man, the surgery went botched. It went wrong. And he almost died. He had to have him removed right away. And the first thing he said when he came out of the surgery was, "My life is over. What am I going to do?" So I said, wait a minute, give me a second. So, I just, so I'm a thinker. I like to think. Some of these young users are developing low self-esteem issues, body shaming. Everyone thinks they have to have this waist that's a size 0. Some people cut their ribs out. They get surgery to remove fat. They put fat in different places. Everybody doesn't spend their money on the mall on Louis Vuitton purses. Some people actually take their money and invest into their body to look physically more attractive. With that said, there was a story with a guy, I'm going to pull it up in a minute, who had gotten his chest implants. So they weren't like breasts, but they were like kind of pecs and muscles. But because he was working out and the way he was working out, it started shifting them. So then they fell down under a pocket in his chest or something. I can't remember the entire article, but the point was the man, the surgery went botched. It went wrong. And he almost died. He had to have him removed right away. And the first thing he said when he came out of the surgery was, "My life is over. What am I going to do?" So I said, wait a minute, give me a second. So, I just, so I'm a thinker. I like to think. Is it okay to break up with your girlfriend for talking to another guy or following or liking another guy on TikTok? Wow. So if I can just use my educated opinion, I would say that's going a little bit too far. That person can be on the other side of the country, and you two are arguing about someone that this person will never meet or never knew, and they just like looking at that person. So my thought is that maybe you need to look in the mirror and check out your self-esteem levels. Maybe you have low self-esteem and you're feeling insecure. That's not her fault. All right, she was looking at the other guys before she met you. She may look at other guys while she's with you. It's okay. You have eyes, you can see. Right? I'm looking at you guys on the camera. So looking at someone, I don't think is a reason to break up. But for me, but I'm older now. I probably would have tolerated that back in the day. But for me, I just think that's doing too much. Another reason to argue. So, relationships. All right. More results.
The concept was pretty simple. Just thinking about the concept. Of course, we were just messing around when we first built the studio. So it just came out, and then we gave it some life by giving it some substance. And pretty much Talk That Shit show was really supposed to be for you to come on a show without being censored, without being told what to say. You were supposed to be able to talk your shit and be free about it. And it's like a judge-free zone. So
nice.
And that was the premise of the whole Talk That Shit show. And also wanted to be in the community. We wanted the people around us to be able to, voice their, business, whatever they were doing, their venue, whatever they were doing. We wanted them to be able to showcase their talents on our show. So it's just like, it was a double thing. Like, talk that shit. If you doing something, talk that shit.
I like that.
And if you wanted to voice your opinion too, talk that shit too.
Nice.
Without being censored. We
Nice.
don't like cancel culture around here.
Okay.